Federal government takes deliberate move to check corruption, sets up committee to review Public Procurement Act.
All the projects that we said will be stepped down does not mean that they are going to be thrown away. What council decision is that we bring them all, look at them again.
Ahead of national headcount, Nigerian government inaugurates Census National Security and Logistics Committee.
NDLEA top staff says no hiding place for drug traffickers in Nigeria.
We cannot rest on our oars until all the objectives of our mandate are fully achieved.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall examine livestock reforms.
All right, nation building, peaceful coexistence is a process, not a destination. And it means that it requires agreeable implementation for parties involved to abide by. And just like Ronald Reagan buttressed in his words, peace is not the absence of conflict, but the ability to handle conflicts by peaceful means. End of quote. Invariably, in the absence of this agreement, that's the peaceful agreement, chaos ensues, and of course, conflict become inevitable.
Absolutely, Claire. And you know, a nation without peace is a nation headed for chaos, just like I said, and absolutely. A clear example is data from the International Center for Investigative Reporting, indicating that between January and October 2023, thousands of people were killed in violent attacks and conflicts across the country. Although these figures might be in contention for uncertain, but more than ever before, the harsh reality of our situation underscores the issues of conflict in Nigeria, which has become endemic, particularly farmers-herders clashes.
All right, that's quite sad. And the issue of farmer-herders clashes in Nigeria, which was before now seen as a regional conflict, is taken another dimension, and many people are raising eyebrows, and of course reactions from different quarters. Now, the hitherto confined conflict has reportedly gone beyond the borders of many West African countries.
Indeed, and very true, Claire. It is a struggle of supremacy, people say, between herders and farmers in Nigeria over farmland and pasture. The issue is regarded by some analysts as a serious and escalating conflict, registering huge casualties and raising tensions. Some believe the conflicts have been fueled by environmental challenges, climate change, cultural differences and resources, and also political polarization.
Absolutely, and for many years, drought, desertification, particularly in the north, have forced many pastoralist herdsmen to, seek grazing lands further south. And that is also resulting in competition over resources. Of course, I should add limited resources and clashes with settled farmers. Unfortunately, the impact is felt significantly with loss of lives, livelihoods, food insecurity, proliferation of small arms and light weapons, displacement of vulnerable groups. Most especially, women and children are mostly impacted,
yes,
by all of the
They bear the brunt of conflicts.
Indeed.
In a conflict situation, the women and children are in more danger because they are vulnerable.
Yes.
And just last year, the House of Representatives had an interactive session on the recurrent annual clashes with incidents across some parts of the country. And the resolve was to take a critical look at the causes, nature, dimensions, actors, and of course, impacts.
All right, let's also fast forward to July this year. Of course, that's a few days ago. And action, they say speak louder than words. And that is the fact that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is not just taking more, of course, will not take any more chances as he inaugurated the Presidential Committee on Implementation of Livestock Reforms to address obstacles to agricultural productivity and, of course, open up new opportunities for farmers and herders and distributors in the livestock farming value chain. And if you recall, last year there was a national conference on livestock, which was held here in Abuja. It was at the instance of the former Kano State Governor, Ganduje, and that was the beginning of this new initiative taken by President Ahmed Tinubu, and that conference specifically came up with reports on what to do, not just to expand or to give viability to this livestock industry, but also to address other security measures.
That was after, so many brouhaha about the Ruga, settlement and all that. And he named the Renewed Hope Livestock Reform Implementation Committee. It is now chaired by President himself and co-chaired by Professor Attairu Jega. You remember him, former INEC President. President Tinubu had also pronounced the creation of a ministry to be known as Federal Ministry of Livestock Development. Now, what are the expected reforms in the livestock development? What should be the model operandi for the committee to avoid rhetorics and put its best foot forward in promoting agricultural productivity and enhancing livestock development?
In the academics, when we talk about peace and conflict, some people will tell you that man is naturally conflictual, which means that his whole being is driven by conflict. But of course, there is the other school of thought that will tell you that no, man is not naturally altogether conflictual. There is the other side of man, which loves for peace. Yes. So if you give man a chance, he's capable of rational thoughts, and that's what we should be looking at. Man is capable, of rational thought. So man is capable of addressing those things that drive conflict. And indeed, there are so many other questions, obvious questions, and at the same time, palpable excitement of what has, been thrown up to us. But with the introduction of the Ministry of Livestock Development, it brings the total number of ministries to 47. Mind you, it hasn't come on board yet. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has said, okay, this reform, the report of the reform, is recommending creation of this ministry.
Yes, from conversations across the country, this is the first time an initiative like this is wholeheartedly, accepted by everybody. The Ruga controversy was there and so many things, but I believe Nigerians now understand that these farmer-herder clashes should come to an end.
Everyone wanted to come to an end. Everyone wanted, and like President Bola Ahmed Tinubu said, I mean, with the caliber of people and with the vast opportunities we have, we don't have any reason, to have all the conflicts. So we are hoping that the reports, will be implementable, the framework will be drawn, and then a lot of stakeholders, that are supposed to be part of the implementation will key into it, and the bureaucratic bottlenecks that normally, impede implementation of this kind of initiatives must be looked at. And indeed, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu had given directive to all the ministries and ministers involved. Anyway, this is our focus this morning on Good Morning Nigeria. We will be talking very, very deeply, about the reforms in this sector, not just the ministry, but the reforms and what can be done and how it can be implemented. On this note, I gladly welcome you to the program. I am Claire Adelabu Abdurrazak, and it's been a while. I'm presenting with my sister today.
Yeah, good to see you. It's been a while. That's why I'm so relaxed, And I'm Jumoy Yusuf. We're transmitting live on the network service of the NTA here in Abuja. And in the course of the program, as usual, we have our newspaper review. But for now, let's take the highlights of the morning news with Dennis Adegunle. Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning, Jume and Claire. Good morning, Nigeria. The administration of President Bola Tinubu is demonstrating commitment towards checking corruption and related matters in the public procurement processes with the setting up of a committee to review the Public Procurement Act. The decision from Wednesday's meeting of the Federal Executive Council is to give expression to the stand of the administration in ensuring probity, proficiency and diligence in the execution of federal projects.
The position of Council on Procurement Act is that it is long overdue for amendment. The last time it was touched was in 2007, and because of the changing dynamics, it is important that we bring these the content of the act, to be in tandem with the happenings in the society.
All the projects that we said will be stepped down does not mean that they are going to be thrown away. What council decision is that we'll bring them all, look at them again. Now the Minister of Budget, Minister of Finance, the Minister of Works will sit down and look at the projects again and reprioritize.
22 new judicial officers have been added to the bench of the Court of Appeal. Administering the oath of office on the new appellate court justices, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Olukayode Ariwola, advised the judicial officers to dispense justice without fear or favor.
Today's ceremony is an indication of the perilous times that we are currently in, which has resulted in an upsurge in litigation. Several unfathomable crimes are being committed in this country, aside from the usual political matters that have made litigations to go on an alarming rise.
And ahead of the planned population and housing census in Nigeria, the federal government has inaugurated a Census National Security and Logistics Committee to drive a hitch-free exercise. National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu, who is chairing the committee, assures of a safe environment for the headcount.
It is in the light of this and the desire to bequeath an enduring legacy of evidence-based planning for sustainable development that the conduct of the nation's population and housing census is of topmost priority to the administration of His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
The Director General of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Brigadier General Buba Marwa, says there is no hiding place for illicit drug traffickers in Nigeria, as the agency has created 5 new strategic commands with body cameras for operational efficiency. The NDLEA boss stated this at a meeting with commanders of the agency in Abuja.
Diligence to maintain its integrity. We owe the public a duty to not betray the trust reposed in us. We cannot rest on our oars until all the objectives of our mandate are fully achieved.
Well, those are the news highlights for now. Good morning. Nigeria continues after this break with Claire and Jume. Good morning.
The federal government of Nigeria warns vandals of national assets, electricity transmission towers, cables and other facilities to desist from this act of sabotage. Vandalism is a serious crime punishable under the law. Vandalizing electrical equipment will affect millions of Nigerians, including your loved ones. Remember that national assets belong to all of us, hence the need to protect them. Report all cases of suspicious movement around electrical facilities to security agencies. When you see something, say something. This message is from the Federal Ministry of Information and National Orientation in collaboration with the National Counter-Terrorism Center, NCTC, Office of the National Security Advisor.
The new Milo 3-in-1 Milky and Creamy is truly milky and contains calcium. No need to add milk for that rich, creamy cup, which helps to nourish and energize your kids. Milo!
Did you know that a quarter of the world's deaths from malaria is in Nigeria? And the reason being a mosquito that spreads malaria, a disease that puts everyone's life in distress. We believe that protection and prevention is the best cure in the fight to end malaria. Mortein insecticide with its improved formulation kills 100% mosquitoes that spread malaria. So, spread the message of how we can fight to end malaria with Mortein. Mortein, our #1 choice.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
You have to move from the point where you protect and defend your religion to a point where you also recognize the rights of the other person, of the other religion, and protect it. So if I am protecting my own territory and my own people and trying to emphasize their rights and protect their rights, I should also be thinking about how to protect the rights of the others.
Both Islam and Christianity recognize and defer to God, and both recognize the temporariness of the life of this world, and that ultimately we all go back to God for the day of reckoning, when everybody will render an account of his life on this temporary abode.
From the Atlantic across the savannah to the Sahara, we rise, a land of the free, we know they tire. We dream great, our spirit is undying.
Resilient, rooted like palm tree, we sway in colors, we turn dark into light, we make solutions, we ignite passion, yeah. Ethnicity is unique, we have more than just a nation.
We are Nigeria, strengthening unity, we know they carry lives. We are Nigeria, together live the dream of a land with great destiny. We are Nigeria.
I am the real Nigerian. Brought to you by the National Orientation Agency, NOA.
All right, welcome back. If you just joined in, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network series. Up next is newspaper review.
And our newspaper reviewer, Chukudi Okolo-Baja, is seated here. Chukudi, is a wet morning today. Beautiful weather.
But I'm happy and excited, as you observed.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a good day. Yeah. Remember what we always say, a good dose of optimism sees you through. Hello, Claire.
Hello, Chukudi.
You like the positivism we are dropping this morning? It moves live.
Okay, let's quickly begin with the papers this morning, and I'm starting with the Sun newspaper. The Sun newspaper, and just beside the masthead, herdsmen kill 13, burn houses in Benue community. Find the details on page 4. Minimum wage. Ahead of meeting with FG, Labour insists on 250,000 naira. Find the details on page 6. Reps Minister trade words over 1.5 billion contractors fund. Find it on page 26. Insecurity. Tinubu trapped, caged by powerful forces in the villa. That's coming from Mohammed Ndume. Details on page 27. I will rather resign than rule on bended knees is attributed to the River State Governor, Fubara. Insists Amole-led lawmakers' seats were declared vacant December 13. Details on page 8. Tension in Abga, Anambra, as INEC recognizes Edozie Njoku's led EXCO. Details on page 26. NDDC presents 1.9 trillion budget estimates to reps strategizes for regions growth. Details on page 26. Tinubu directs step down of works memos, orders review. With a rider, FEC sets up committee to review Public Procurement Act. And details on page 6. FG governors no fate on local government autonomy as Supreme Court delivers verdict today. Details on page 6. Our judicial system now mockery. CGN laments. Let's quickly go to the Blueprint newspaper. They will have busy front pages today. And above the Blueprint, above the masthead, reps canvass 1% first line charge for TB malaria control. You find details on page 6. With current strategic measures, food prices will crash in 180 days. That's coming from the federal government, and the assurance of high-quality grains importation. Details on page 4. Tinubu meets NLC TUC leaders over minimum wage today. Find all the details in the paper. And ahead, Edo Ondo polls, Areola warns against conflicting judgments. With riders says Nigeria in perilous times over litigation upcharge. Swears in 22 appeal court judges, 12 in FCT High Court. At the bottom plate of the Blueprint, Supreme Court to deliver judgment on local government autonomy. US aid to inject 115 billion naira into Nigeria's power sector. Find the details on page 20. NDLEA promotes 5,042 officers, confers 70 with special awards. I think that's about what we have.
Okay, Jimmy, thank you. You've read out most of the stories I have. But the Vanguard has as its lead story, will regulate price of imported foodstuffs. That's government, and it comes with some metrics there, or riders, if you may. And just again to emphasize the story that Jume just read out, conflicting court orders, CJN vows to deal with errant judges, and this paper actually noted two very prominent situations. Recent conflicting orders of courts of concurrent jurisdiction include the Kano Emirship tussle. A state high court and the federal high court gave conflicting orders. And then the River State crisis, two federal high courts in Abuja issued conflicting orders and political crisis in the state. I think this is very good, emphasizing the two instances there. And UBEC is saying that Nigeria needs almost 200,000 more teachers and 1.1 million classrooms. That story is on page 9. And NSAS protest, ECOWAS court finds federal government guilty of rights violations. And that story is on page 4. Minimum wage, Tinubu meets organized labor today. And I will round off a Vanguard newspaper after Chukwudi's review with Mr. and Mrs. Quite interesting one there. But Chuks, I don't know. Let's start with probably the federal government resolve to regulate price of imported foodstuffs. And I'm wondering, do we still have price control boards? In those days, it would have been easier to do that. But in a situation where prices are determined by market forces, how easy will it be to do this? And it says that it expects that the prices should crash in 180 days.
I was listening to a clip, where the former Edo State Governor, now Senator Kasa Damso Shomole, was saying, how liberal can you actually make your economy and all that? Sometimes government needs to come down on certain things. Some regulation is needed. And I found it a very interesting subject. The PCD, the Price Control Board, boards were quite relevant, you know, in determining some level of stability in the prices of things out there in the marketplace. But now that they are not in place, the interesting question you want to ask as a journalist, you know, we tell you to us the cup is half empty of water because we pry. You need to tell us how you want to do it. What are the mechanisms? What are those? What is the setup that will help us to regulate the price, the prices of these
Yes,
things?
I'm trying to read if there is.
What is it? They need to come out with the plan, how it's going to work.
Precisely.
Because so many things get so demonized and then abused in this country because supervision is largely lacking in key areas.
Listen to this. Listen to this.
Yes.
To me. The minister, of course, the story is on the inside page. The minister, apparently referring to the Minister of of Agriculture, Food and Security, that's Abubakar Kyari, says the minister also explained that over the next 14 days, the Presidential Food Systems Coordinating Unit and the Economic Management Team will, in collaboration, meet with respective agencies to finalize implementation framework for the new policy of making food cheaply available for Nigerians. The new policy will be the removal of duties and tariffs.
And tariffs for 180 days.
For
150. 150 days, yes.
For 150 days. So probably
we expect that the prices will crash in 180 days. You bought rice for about 70,000 naira. That's the big bull thing.
I'm not a rice person.
That's about three weeks ago or 1 month ago to be a bit liberal. Today is 85,000 naira.
Yeah.
That meteoric rise is not explainable in economic terms, you know. So what are Kingsley would always call the vampire market cartels? Those are the people I'm saying. How are we going to control them? How? It's a good thing. Government has very good intentions. The first order of government is to provide welfare for the people.
Chukwudi, we have quite a number of stories we will review. But let's quickly look at another clause, Jume, in this story. And this is coming from Senator Ali Ndume, representing Borno South. And he was speaking, according to this paper, on BBC Hausa service yesterday. He said the biggest problem is that they can't see precedent to advise him on food prices. And he said, let me read out here. He said, the biggest problem confronting members of the National Assembly is the alleged closed-door policy of government, where even some members of Tinubu's cabinet cannot see the president, let alone lawmakers who intend to see him and discuss issues pertaining to their constituency.
There's nothing wrong in lawmaker, a senator for that matter, insisting that
having access,
the president.
But
the Senate meets either in plenary or in committees. Those are the platforms for you to actually transmit anything that can hold it, you know. So sometimes the meeting is talking about may not be completely necessary. Please, I'm not disrespecting Senator Ali, not at all. So the president has other things to do as well, but I'm not one of his aides, so let me stop there.
So we stop there. And one other good thing is today the president is meeting the NLC, TUC, you know, leaders over their minimum wage, and I hope something positive comes out of it.
I pray that
because Nigerians have been patiently waiting.
Something will happen to make them meet each other halfway.
Yes.
If the NLC is still saying, NLC, TUC are still saying it's going to be 250 and nothing short, I still see brickbats in the days ahead. Let them agree on something.
There will be agreement.
So that we don't die of hunger before they come to our rescue.
another landlords are already, you know, the rents is just going up with an expectation of the rise in salaries and the wages for Nigerian workers. So yes, they are preempting it already, and it's not easy.
Chukwudi, I'm sorry, we are asked to round off, but it will not be. I think it will be good for us to quickly, if we can just take 60 seconds to talk about the ECOWAS court finding federal government guilty of rights, and it is ordering the federal government to pay each of the applicants the sum of 2 million as compensation. Additionally, it is also saying that the federal government must adhere to its obligations under the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, that's the ACPHR, by investigating and prosecuting its agents responsible for the violations. And the federal government has 6 months to report to it measures that it has put in place to implement
the first thing to say is the fatalities people were announcing and all that, some of it came to the regional fallacy. But what the ECOWAS court is saying is that free assembly, protest is still very much something that a democratic government must protect. Those young people were not seen to have been breaking things, and suddenly we broke it up. So they are saying their rights have to be ensured. And that is something that Africa, not just Nigeria, has to pay heed to. Yes.
All right. Chukwudi, let me have the pleasure of allowing you to take a leave while we get on with the business.
There's a seeming tendency to stop kicking me out of this.
No. We won't do that.
We can't kick you out.
You are very relevant to this show. Chukwudi, have a pleasant day. Go and tuck yourself under the duvet. It's raining. All right. We'll take a short break. We'll be right back.
You think you're in club? Remove your glass. You cannot wear your sunglass on here. Mention something a Nigerian would ask for when buying suya. Rice. It's hard. I know all these beautiful women, guys. It's hard. This job is not allowing me to be free of my step, to just tease. Back to being the host. Are you in a current relationship now?
No.
No. Yamisi is just a friend?
Yes.
You're single. Yes. He's single. Maybe they can mingle. Survey says.
Meet lovebirds Jayola and Adama Davies. Their dream of living together as man and wife has finally been fulfilled.
The latest couple in town. Hey! Mr. and Mrs. Jaye Davis!
But an invasion by their troublesome families was not a scenario they bargained for. Her mother moves in. His mother shows up with his little niece. Then her younger sister joins the scramble.
You want to stay?
Married life suddenly becomes very complicated even before it started. Follow their story on this channel as they confront every challenge as it comes. Family forever, the story of our lives.
We must all join hands to work hard so that we build a country for our grandchildren.
My hope is that we develop as a nation where every citizen is given his due right. There is transparency, honesty, and integrity.
Put the interests of this country first and foremost. Interests of Nigeria is being one nation, one people.
We need, if I mean, to put things right, things that have gone wrong before, to try and put right. For this, for the love of country.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Euro 2024, live on Sporty TV.
All right. I come back. Thank you for staying with us on Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the NTA. It's time to get on with our business for today. We're looking at the livestock reforms and, of course, way forward. But before we commence our conversation, let's quickly listen to the background report, and it's put together by our correspondent, Garba Natala.
Livestock farming in many developed countries is significant and contributes immensely to satisfying the demands of consumption, such as meat, eggs, milk, fur, leather, and wool. More than 248 million heads of stock chicken, live goats put at 88 million heads, and the sheep stock reportedly adding up to 50.3 million heads, indicating a huge proportion of animals in the country. Nigeria's agricultural landscape predominantly reflects a common practice of people's livelihood and serves as a source of food and employment for billions of rural and urban households. More so, the agribusiness in Nigeria is a lucrative one, so appealing that the variety of options offers many opportunities for people to engage in such business. Considering the key subsectors of the livestock industry, President Bola Tinubu inaugurated a committee on the implementation of livestock reforms to address obstacles to agricultural productivity with the support of stakeholders drawn from the public and private sectors and the state governors. The president envisions new frontiers for farmers, herders, processors, and distributors in the livestock farming value chain to further explore the potential in the area of poultry, dairy, cattle, and fishery, among others. For Nigeria's growth and prosperity, the removal of all legal obstacles is needed for the implementation of the reforms, and the establishment of Ministry of Livestock Development is an added boost. For performance, providing modern technology, creating a budget for it, and rolling out other incentives to enable Nigeria to take advantage of livestock farming is key. With this reform, it is believed economic prosperity is guaranteed, giving prominence to livestock. But how can the issue of farmer-herders clashes be resolved? How can it boost livestock production? How can environmental degradation be tackled? And can states secure funding for such reform? Is there a commitment to encourage ranching? Is insecurity still hindering progress in states? These issues and more will be discussed by guests on the program.
Thank you, Garba Nata'ala. And already we have our guests seated in the studio. And we begin with Professor Mohammed Yahya Kuta. He's the Secretary, Presidential Livestock Reforms Implementation Committee. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
It's a pleasure to be with you. Good morning, Nigeria.
We have Professor Olorunfemi Jegede. He's coming from the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine, University of Abuja. It's a pleasure to have you, John.
Thank you.
And we also have somebody I've been following on the social media for quite a while, Aminu Murtala Inyako. He's Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer, Sebore International Farms in Adamawa State. It's a pleasure to finally meet you.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yes.
All right. Jumeni has met. Anyway, let me raise up my comment.
From my full brother.
Sorry?
My full brother.
You know? All right. We have two other guests joining us via Zoom. One is from Kaduna, and that's Dr. Salim Momale, Executive Vice Chairman, Peace Commission. Dr. Momale, are you there? Oh, yeah. Thank you very much for joining us again.
Good morning, and good morning, Nigerians.
And we have the pleasure also of joining us all the way from London, Senator representing Plateau South Federal Constituency, former chairman, Northern Governors Forum, and of course, former speaker, governor of Plateau State, Right Honorable Simon Bako Lalong. Your Excellency, distinguished Senator, thank you very much for joining us on this program.
Yes, good morning, viewers. Thank you very much for having me, Claire and Jumai.
Okay, let's start with the secretary, who is the Presidential Livestock Reforms Implementation Committee, and I mean it's necessary we start with you. We would like you to actually let's identify for us the major issues really in this livestock industry that require, reform.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, on behalf of the chairman of the committee on livestock reforms implementation, just inaugurated barely 72 hours ago by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Professor Tairu Jega. He would have been here himself, but he has mandated me and other of my colleagues in the committee, Professor Olurfemi Jegede, Mr. Aminu Murtala Yanko, and Dr. Saleh Momale to join Good Morning Nigeria today to appreciate President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for this historic moment in the history of Nigeria, to have made a bold statement and take a bold step to find lasting solution to what I call protracted problem that has bedeviled our agricultural system, particularly animal agriculture. And the breaking news is that Mr. President has finally created a Ministry of Livestock Development, which has been well received across the globe, because the kind of information that has reached all of us has been commendations, commendations, and commendations. So we thank Mr. President for this wonderful opportunity to make a difference. Hitherto, Mr. President in 2018 attempted to resolve this livestock crisis, especially herders-farmers conflict, and he tried his best until in 2023, February 13 and 14 precisely, the former governor of Kano State and the current chairman of APC, Dr. Abdullahi Umar Ganduje, organized a conference where a majority of us participated, and it provided a springboard for what is happening today, because at that conference, interestingly, it was also chaired by Professor Tairu Jega and people from all over the country, experts in veterinary medicine, experts in animal science, experts in extension, sociology, conflict resolution, and all professionals assembled in Abuja and insisted that that conference will be the last of its kind, that no more conference, but solution should be sought finally. And on September 14, when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu assumed office, the chairman and the convener of the committee led us to the presidential villa to present the report to Mr. President. And behold, Mr. President, upon receiving that report, was excited and said to us, and I quote him verbatim, he said, "In every adversity, there is an opportunity. So today, the solution is here. And he's going to constitute an implementation committee that will implement the recommendations in that report." And that report was...
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you.
Yes.
So that we can gain time, because we have quite a number of people. We know the antecedents, from 2023 when, the conference was held. And that conference was to, streamline, what the issues in the livestock industry, are. And I've just asked, if you may, just give us an idea, an insight into what are the major issues bedeviling that sector that that conference, addressed, for which, we are seeking reforms.
Yes. Primarily, the issue of farmers conflict was at the front burner. And part of the solutions were that there is a need to pay attention to the issue of livestock because we have not maximized our potentials as a nation. In other climes, smaller countries like Benin Republic, Burkina Faso that have Ministry of Livestock Development have a GDP contribution of 55%, 40%, and 45% and 50% in some instances. In Nigeria, the contribution was abysmal, has been abysmal, less than 10%, in spite of our potential in terms of landmass, in terms of population of livestock. And when we talk about livestock, it's not all about cattle, it's all about all animals that are domesticated for economic gain. And the advantage here is that we need to explore the economic potential of the sector so that we will address the entire value chain instead of just picking some point of it and it's all embracing. So we have been able to look at all the issues in that perspective, and Mr. President has charged this committee to fast track the implementation. And it has started with the establishment because the conference recommended that part of the solution is to have a Ministry of Livestock Development to pay attention to all the issues of livestock development in our country. And it has started, and that with this now, we are to look at the operational issues and all the issues that will ensure that we maximize our potential economically and socially, address some of the latent issues that have caused conflict among diverse interests.
So,
in
so fundamentally, the issue is to address the security issues.
That's right.
You know,
exactly. You continue to talk about that when we return, but we now have to link up with Senator Olalong, who is joining us via Zoom from London. And Senator, you know, you are an advocate of ranching. You've always said that ranching is the best option for Plateau State, and you know, one of the states worst hit by herder farmers clashes is Plateau State. And what is your take on this new ministry and, you know, the process the president is going through to ensure that we quell the tension that is there in the North Central especially? And can you tell us how this report will be implemented in your area as a senator actually?
Thank you very much, Jumai, and let me also thank very much Mr. President for this idea, for this novel idea. For over 30 years, I would say more than 20 years, because from the 8 years that I was a governor, we were faced with these challenges, and every time, even moving to the chairman of Governors Forum, I can see a lot of resource persons who have been very, very active on this. Professor Kuta was part of it, Mr. Momale, and then the representative of former Governor Nyako. Nyako, I must say, commend him. First, put me for 2 hours and told me, you must find a lasting solution to this problem. And that was when I became governor. So for me, I think the president has taken the bull by the horn. I've heard some people say that it will be duplication. What is duplication? We have been on this same issue using the same method and achieving nothing. Today, there is a movement of foundation for the creation of a ministry. Now it will implementation. I will say that a lot of it was done like that. That was the idea that came up with the livestock production program. But it failed because of what sentiments? A lot of sentiments. People are now moving religion. People became so strong and destroyed the whole concept. But for me, when I saw Professor Jega, when I saw the team, I said, yes, I have a lot of respect for Professor Jega because I know his level of commitment when it comes to issues like this. So we need a separate ministry with separate resource persons. All of them are here. All of them, I know their capacity. It is now moving, drawing the publicity aspect of it. Let people not put religion into it. Let people not put ethnicity into it. It is a very it's a venture that will take us away from the farmers herdsmen predicament that we're facing, not only in the north now, all over the country. So if we have this aspect, today we are faced with food shortage, now crying of hunger because of insecurity. People can no longer go to their farms. And when they say, look at these are solutions, let us use these solutions to address it. You see infiltration of religion and ethnic issues that will destroy a very beautiful concept. So that was why I started with commending Mr. President for taking this action, and also the kind of people that he's putting. So the implementation, I've not read through the documents, I won't claim that I've read all, but when I saw them and I said this would be the same people, so that now that there's a ministry separated from the Ministry of Agriculture. When we started the concept, how did it die? From Ministry of Agriculture in implementation. A concept that was supposed to be implemented well under the former vice president was turned into an issue, and then just the mention of Ruga destroyed the whole thing. What is Ruga? Ruga was a good concept, but then the way and manner it was brought at that time in the implementation created a political confusion all over the country for a concept like this. Now we have Ministry for Livestock. Let nobody go and say it is Christian, it is Muslim, it is this. And then encourage those who are going to implement it, and we will find a lasting solution to the farmers' herdsmen problem that we have in Nigeria.
Distinguished Senator, thank you. And, when we talk about livestock industry and reforms, we seem to be focusing primarily on, the herder farmer clashes, which is understandable. I mean, we all understand the reason why. But there are very critical issues that are also involved and need to be reformed. And that's why I'll ask you, apart from the crisis between the farmers and the herders, what are the other issues that would require attention that a new ministry, or in the alternative, in the words of Mr. President, an expansion of the Department of Livestock Production would resolve?
Well, I think the ministry should do a lot of sensitization. You remember I mentioned it. Now, Nigerians, anything you mention about livestock, they will think that it's all about cows. It's not about cows. It's all, like somebody mentioned, Professor mentioned, it's all about domestic industry, the domestic industry, and also the value chain, the value chain. For instance, I tried to do that in my state, and I told them, it took me almost 6 months to explain to people that what we are doing is not all about farmers' herdsmen. It's about encouraging people to go into the livestock industry, which is which will now take a lot of our youth off on the street. We have a lot of land in some of the northern parts that are wasted. Now, because we are not using those portions, you see a lot of criminals will use it, will come to occupy that place and turn it into an enclave for banditry. Now, we had 95,000 hectares of land wasted in one local government. I quickly said, why are we wasting it? Now let us move this and do an example, a pilot scheme. I saw it, Nasarawa is doing it, Adamawa is doing it, Gombe is doing it. About 10 or 12 states were already doing it in the north. Now, if you have this concept and you demonstrate it with livestock industry, people will key into it. I have seen a lot of big men, even from the south, saying that if you start, if it is going, all we are avoiding is this stigmatization, or what people say, that anytime you talk about livestock industry, you are talking about one tribe. That is like you are trying to paint a tribe wrong. But I don't want to do that. But when you talk about this, let us take time. Like there's a ministry now, we must take that time. We must pay, that is federal government must pay that good attention. When I say good attention, it means that there must be adequate funding. Let them fund it and see. People will shift from all other industries and move into the livestock industry. For me, that has been my ambition, and a lot of us in the Senate or National Assembly, I see people talking about keeping 100 cows. I see people talking about sheep, talking about poultry, and all those things. So that kind of sensitization, the ministry will now demonstrate and also concentrate, rather than taking it and still concentrating in the Ministry of Agriculture, where you see a lot of bureaucracy, and when there is a good concept, it turns into a different matter. So today, Mr. President has assembled a good chunk of resource persons in that ministry I've seen. Now, if they get there and they fail, then there's no more hope for this country in respect to addressing these issues again. So we need to take steps, bring out the program, print it out, take it to the lowest person, down to the grassroots. Let them understand what we are doing, and then we move in and address this issue. So by the time we address these issues, it will also avoid us this farmers-herdsmen conflict.
Indeed, Senator Simon Lalong, you said there will be no hope. There is hope. This is the renewed hope agenda era, and I believe Nigerians have hope. Let's bring in other guests, because we'll be coming back to you to talk about the challenges you faced as governor of Plateau State while we were talking about the Ruga settlement. Let's bring in Aminu Murtala Nyako. He's the managing director and chief executive officer, Sebore. Did I get it all right? Yes. International Farms. I've been following you, I've been watching you. It's good to see somebody so young, interested in business, although you were born into it, I believe. Yes, and let's have your take on this new ministry for livestock and the potential of this new ministry when it takes off, because it's a multi-trillion-dollar business. And I remember in the 70s, we were even exporting rams to Saudi Arabia from Kano. Then that I was doing that, and all of a sudden it just died because of the conflicts and the fights between herders and farmers. Let's have your take on the potential that this ministry will bring by changing the dynamics in the economy of this country.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. As you can see, I'm a very young Nigerian. I'm in the agribusiness space, yes. And I think it is highly commendable what President Asiwaju has done in terms of establishing the Ministry of Livestock Development. But I will take it from a very different angle. We need to understand that Nigerians right now are facing possibly one of the worst food scarcity and food availability that we've ever experienced. And within that, we've been experiencing a lot of inflation, which has been putting a pinch on every single Nigerian across all demographics. When you look at it within this realm, you actually have to think and say, how do you place Nigeria in terms of a forward-thinking nation to address food security? When you're thinking of national security, food security is actually paramount, because everyone knows an angry man, hungry man, angry man. So within this context, how I'm looking at it as a young Nigerian is, look, Nigeria currently has to pivot away from oil as its primary driver of growth, because we know the challenges that are facing the oil market, and oil demand has peaked. We know the prices of oil are coming down. We know that we are over leveraged in terms of our oil, and previous administrations, current administration, are saying that we need to go into non-oil export, non-oil production, and agriculture is the baseline for that. If you look at it within that context, you now need to appreciate that even globally, not only Nigerians are facing inflation, but Western societies are facing climate challenges. They are cultivating less land. They are cultivating, there's a boom of population. We know what is happening in Africa. Tunisia, that was initially providing livestock resources. Sudan was providing a lot of livestock resources. Chad was providing. All these places, Burkina Faso, Niger, all these places have actually delinked because of all the challenges that are being faced. So we have the Middle East having a very high demand. You just alluded to it now, with Andata exporting there before from Nigeria. But all these other places are actually in a state of conflict or turmoil. So the food systems have broken down, and we know what's happening with the Egypt in terms of the Suez Canal, with the Houthis blocking trade, and why trade routes are becoming very expensive. If you look at it within the global context, Nigeria is actually prime because we're in the Gulf of Guinea. Yes. We actually have access to ports. We can actually export into America, Europe, enter the Mediterranean Sea, and push our actual agro resources in that direction. I want to kind of open the minds of Nigerians that, you know, we always look within. This entire conversation has been watered down to farmer header. It's not, for me, as a young Nigerian, it's not about farmer header. I will explain that as we go along. It's not about farmer header. It is that if you're looking at agric to be the premier driver of growth in Nigeria now, you need to look at agric in two ways. You have crop production and you have livestock. And over the last 2-3 decades, we have lumped it as agriculture, and the focus of the ministry has always been on crop. Most people don't realize, if I ask now, what is the population, what is the ruminant population of livestock in Nigeria? Everybody always says, oh, Nigeria is 220 million people. Do you know that we almost have 60% of that in livestock, in cows, sheep, horses, ram, poultry, and there's no database. We cannot plan for it. We cannot leverage it. We cannot convert it into value. These things, when you want to now start to make agriculture what it should be, you need to now understand that all these ruminant animals, yes, cattle right now has the focus because of the header crisis, but how won't you have header crisis when you have 220 million Nigerians and 160 million livestock roaming around interstate, going into communities and growing? You would, if you're not able to have a government body that can sit down, organize, track, integrate, develop, and plan, you will have chaos that moves into decades. And me as a young Nigerian, you people keep saying, the youth are the future, the youth are the future. The future that is coming forth is chaotic. And I commend President Asiwaju extremely for taking this initiative. For me, this is a very proactive initiative. That look, if we are going to say agriculture is going to be the premier driver of growth, then we're going to have a Ministry of Agriculture that will focus on crop. Crop is everything you know, fruits, vegetables, tree crops, cash crops. It's already a big thing. When you think of livestock, you're now going to be thinking about foraging, you're going to be thinking about veterinary doctors, AI, you're going to be thinking about breed improvement, meat, milk.
So much.
It's a lot.
Yeah, so much.
But
range. just before I take the conversation away from you and bring in Dr. Saleh Momale, I just want to ask, from my curiosity, you are the director and CEO of Sebore?
Yes.
Sebore International Farms. What do you do?
So,
what aspect of farming are you
I'm a dairy farmer. I'm a dairy farmer. I tell people I'm an economist first and a dairy farmer second. 3 years ago, we built the largest fresh dairy processing plant in Nigeria, powered by solar and batteries. We've integrated about 18,000 farmers right now in the Northeast. We collect milk from Chibok, Southern Borno, Biu, through Adama, all the way to Taraba, Gashaka, Guroje,
Where are you based?
We're in Adamawa State. So we collect milk daily.
So you collect milk from Chibok?
We collect milk daily.
Daily.
We bring it to we bring it to our facility and we process it into yogurt, butter, cheese, ice cream.
So indeed, for it is for people like you that this initiative comes very, very handy.
And timely too.
And again, it is for people like you that the issue of farmer header crisis need to be tackled. And that's why I'm going to take my next question to Dr. Saleh Momale. And it's about regulating and organizing this livestock industry such that, you know, it has a focus. And when you talk about regulating and organizing it, it will mean managing the pasture and, of course, you know, finding a way of harmonizing grazing rights or grazing land and all that. What, from your point of view, what would be the first step in developing both, grazing rights and, of course, maybe ranching?
Thank you. I wish to join my colleagues in commending Mr. President for taking up this bold initiative. I think it is all very clear that this sector needs to be reformed. This sector needs to be developed. A lot of stakeholders need to be on board, and Nigerian citizens need to have a more clearer understanding of what the livestock industry means in terms of contribution to national development. I think my colleagues have earlier explained that in much more details. For every production system, there are various components, there are various requirements, and there are different stakeholders that are involved. And the processes of the production system involves different stages. And most of the focus in the popular discourse is as if when we are speaking, it's just about getting land for cattle to graze. But beyond land for cattle to graze, there are a lot of other opportunities along the entire value chain for all categories of Nigerians. And I think this is very important. So strategically speaking, it's a traditionally based production system if you come to the ruminant livestock. And in ruminant livestock, we are talking about cattle, sheep, and goats, principally in Nigeria, because we have fewer camels, unlike many other Sahelian countries. If you pick the three major animals, apart from poultry and other small ruminants and piggeries, you find that cattle, sheep, and goats are the major ruminant population. Who are the owners of this ruminant population, and how are these ruminant populations managed? If you take sheep, for example, sheep is a common household animal that is maintained by smallholder producers in both the urban and rural areas by all ethnic groups across the country, but most particularly in northern Nigeria. If you take goats, goats is also an animal that is managed by smallholder producers, the rural, by all Nigerians across the country, the northwest, the north, the south, and the southwest. So I maintain in the house. So they are very important and critical livestock for the sustenance of the rural women economy, for the sustenance of smallholder producers. Then coming to cattle, cattle are more dominant in northern Nigeria, and they are livestock that are predominantly owned by the herders, managed under, peasant production systems with huge potentials for improvement. So how have this system fared, and how has it been managed, and why is it driving some of these conflicts? Now, wherever I speak, I always want to draw attention that the conflicts, although very devastating as it is not everywhere. It's most prominent in areas where the management of intercommunity relations, where the management of land resources have been altered by either population growth or by climate change or by the introduction of ethnic, religious, and other political considerations into the production system. So if we remove politics, we remove ethnicity, we remove all these negative considerations that negate the development of the sector, you find out that the cattle resources are a resources of the communities wherever they exist. So talking about that, we will, I think, focusing on developing integrated crop livestock systems for smallholder producers that promotes beneficial crop livestock exchanges between crop farmers and livestock producers, that integrate animal manpower into agriculture, as we are increasingly seeing, the use of work bulls to plow agricultural fields, the use of animals to support some of the key agricultural practices, the fertilization of our degraded soils using organic manure we derive from animals, the conversion of animal crop byproducts into viable and important livestock feeds that will increase productivity. We will begin to see increased livestock productivity, increased crop productivity, for crop farmers, for higher productivity for animal producers, higher productivity and incomes for the varied stakeholders along the entire value chains. We will then begin to see increased private sector investment. We'll begin to see increased investment by rural producers themselves in improved animal production systems. And this will gradually lead us to the introduction of integrated farms that we are seeing by both large-scale investors, small-scale investors, and possibly international investors that will place Nigeria in a strategic position to contribute not only to the food security of its own citizens, but to the food security of the entire West African sub-region, and open up our potentials for the export economy to other countries. Importantly, most of our animal resources are still very useful and very, let me say, indigenous species that have very high productive capacities and which are organic. So implying that many of these biotic engineering that has taken place for some of the animal species in other climes, and people who are looking for these organic foods will rush to countries like Nigeria and other West African countries for organic products from animal resources. And these are huge opportunities that we will exploit. And I think this is the vision of Mr. President, and the committee and the ministry have an enormous task, just like His Excellency, distinguished Senator Long explained, to modernize Nigerians.
Dr. Momole, you know, you've raised a lot of pertinent questions, and as Executive Vice Chairman, Peace Committee in Kaduna State, this is the first time a policy like this, a move like this is appreciated across board by all. And I'm going to quote something that the Mieti Allah said. You know, they said, we as an association had for years been agitating tooth and nail to actualize the creation of a stand-alone ministry to modernize livestock production system, you know, in line with global best practices. Nigeria wants to move beyond this country, because when we see other countries like the Netherlands, UK, the US making so much tremendous amount of money from livestock agriculture in their country and contributing immensely to the economy, where do you think this ministry will take Nigeria, you know, traject it, you know, on the world map?
I expect to see in the forthcoming years a robust ruminant livestock production strategy that will see our rural women who are managing small poultry, who are managing goats, who are managing sheep, being able not only to make marginal income, but to make enormous resources that will contribute to family well-being, that will contribute to income, improve life, improve livelihoods, improve nutrition for our young children, that will be able to provide quality education for our own children across the entire country. I would love to see a robust strategy that will place our peasant herder communities to now begin to manage their animals within their homesteads, rather than, you know, aggregating animals into big herds that are undernourished, that produce very minimal milk. I would want to see every herder woman owning her own animals within the backyard of their own settlement, being able to grow the pasture, being able to key into the forage production mechanisms, feed those animals to produce milk that is sufficient to feed her family, sufficient for the commercial market, and sufficient to make Nigeria to become non-dependent on the import of dairy products. I would want to see this ministry initiating efforts and engaging Nigerians so that we have a common front for the development of this country in a unified, a coordinated, and in a peaceful and harmonious manner. These are the challenges before us, and the ministry need to work with those of crop production, create integrated communities that see themselves as partners in the development of their own communities as well as the nation at large.
All right, thank you, Dr. Momale. Thank you very much for the issues that you have raised. Very, very fundamental issues indeed. But again, we know that livestock farmers, cattle, cow, goat, sheep, camel, whatever, will require a place, to farm, a piece of land to farm, before even international farmers like Malam Aminu Nyako here, can even access them. For instance, if they have a particular location, Malam Aminu Nyako here would not have to go all the way to Chibok, to get his his value chain. I mean, the raw materials for his products. If he's based in Abuja, for instance, he knows he can easily go, access those facilities here in Abuja and all that. So the issue of, again, land is a very touching issue.